Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Have you ever done something that just seemed totally irrational, like buying a fancy gadget you did not need, or deciding to skip a workout even though you know it is good for you? Today we are diving into a fascinating paper that looks at the big picture of why we act the way we do. And it might just give you a better understanding of your own decision-making. The researchers wanted to bridge the gap between different fields like biology, sociology, and computer science to see how we manage to make decisions in a world that is constantly changing. The paper starts by pointing out a common problem in science. Experts in psychology, economics, and biology all study how we behave, but they usually stay in their own lanes. Psychologists might focus on how your brain processes a single choice, while biologists look at how your genes shaped your instincts over thousands of years. The team behind this paper decided to bring 6 different dynamics together to see how they all contribute to making us the decision makers we are today. Think of it like looking at a car engine. One person might study the tires, another the spark plugs, and another the fuel. But this paper tries to look at the whole car to understand how it actually gets from point A to point B. So, what are these 6 mysterious dynamics? They are broken down into 2 main groups. First, the individual level, which happens within your own life. That includes thinking, like when you weigh the pros and cons of a job offer. There is learning, where you update your brain because of past experiences. And there is development, which is how your brain and body change as you mature from childhood. Then there is the population level, which involves things much larger than just you, that is market selection, which explains how businesses or strategies either succeed or get pushed out. There is cultural evolution, where we pass down knowledge like recipes or building techniques. And finally, there is genetic evolution, the slow process of our species adapting to the environment over eons. It is wild to think about the different time scales here. You make a choice in seconds, but your genetics are the result of millions of years of fine-tuning. When the researchers look at these together, they find that we are basically trying to match ourselves to our environment all the time. They call this ecological rationality, which is just a fancy way of saying that being rational means your brain is really good at picking up on the patterns in the world around you. If you are in a forest, being alert to movement is rational. If you are in a stock market, being alert to numbers is the goal. The big takeaway from the paper is that there is no perfect way to act in every situation. If you were a computer, you could not simply be programmed with one single rule that makes you perfectly smart in every environment, because the world is too unpredictable. Instead, we have a toolbox of shortcuts. These heuristics are what we usually call gut feelings or common sense. They help us make fast, good enough decisions when we do not have the time or energy to crunch all the numbers. One of the most interesting parts is their discussion on how we might be biased or irrational. Some scientists focus on how people make mistakes, like being bad at estimating probabilities. Others argue that if you give people enough feedback, they actually act like professional statisticians. The authors suggest that both views are basically correct. In a one-shot scenario where you have no experience, you are prone to bias, but when you get to play the game over and over, you learn the patterns. Your brain is a really efficient learning machine, but the environment you are in determines how good that learning becomes. They call some environments kind, where you get clear, fast feedback, and others wicked, where the feedback is fuzzy, delayed. Or totally wrong. If you are learning to play guitar, your progress is clear, kind, and fun. If you are trying to predict the stock market, the environment is wicked because there are so many variables you cannot see. The research also explains why we are not always consistent. We are constantly trying to save energy. Thinking takes a lot of fuel for the brain, so we often rely on what we learned as kids or what our culture tells us is the right thing to do. This brings us back to the idea of proxy failure. Sometimes we start chasing a goal that is just a stand-in for the real thing. For example, you might work really hard for a bonus because you think money equals happiness. But if that pressure makes you too stressed to enjoy your life, the proxy failed. The money became more important than the success it was supposed to provide. When looking at this from my own perspective, I think the strongest point this paper makes is that we need to be kinder to ourselves when we fail. We are not just a single static brain making decisions. We are a messy, complex system influenced by our culture, our development, and millions of years of evolution. Sometimes, what looks like irrationality is actually a remnant of a strategy that worked for our ancestors in a very different world. The limitation here is that the paper is very conceptual. It is a big map for how everything fits together, but it does not tell you exactly how to fix your procrastination or your bad spending habits. It is essentially a high-level philosophy of the mind rather than a quick fix. The implication for all of us is that if you want to make better decisions, you need to curate your environment. If you want to learn better, put yourself in a kind environment with fast feedback. If you want to change your habits, recognize that you are fighting against years of development and cultural influence, so treat the change like a long-term project rather than a one-time choice. Future research will likely continue to map out these connections between different levels of the mind, and I am really excited to see how AI research starts to play a role in this, as we try to build machines that replicate this kind of balance between learning, thinking, and evolving. Thanks for joining me in the lab today. If you enjoyed this breakdown of how our minds actually work, do not forget to hit that like button. Leave a comment about the time you struggled with the decision in a wicked environment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the science of human behavior. See you next time.